about what she's been through. After we've watched Helen's story, we'll be talking about postnatal depression. Helen, a trainee psychiatric nurse, had long wanted to be a mother. After 2.5 years of trying, she finally found out she was expecting.
I was so excited to be pregnant, nervous, lots of kind of anxieties came in over would I be a good mum. When it came to having Isabel, the labour was not as I'd expected. I think the labour may have contributed to my anxieties. On top of the fact that I'd had polycystic ovaries and so knew it was difficult for me to conceive. I remember when I was being born, there was a kind of few seconds of not hearing her cry, and having had the trauma of her not breathing on the way out, that I thought, well, that's it, there's something horribly wrong. Everything was fine for the first 6 weeks after coming home.
Ready to go?
And then we'd go out, and we'd go out shopping, and I'd start feeling dizzy and nauseous. And then, as time went on, I started to notice things like my breathing felt funny, and I was shaky, and I was sweaty. I started to become a bit of a recluse. My self-esteem and my confidence just rock bottomed. And the longer this went on, I would even sort of say to my husband, you know, I'm never going to get better again. I can't even go to the post office. What sort of a life is this? You know, and I think for me, that's when a depression kicked in for me, because I couldn't ever see it getting better. But the main fear was surrounded by Isabel and something happening to her. I was obsessively checking her for her health. I was coming in and checking her breathing at night time, terrified that something might have happened, or that somebody may have came and taken her away while I was asleep. I felt I was missing out, that I wasn't having that experience that mums have of sitting in the park with your baby, going to a cafe and having, you know, coffee and mingling with other new mums. And even now, you know, I'm saddened by the fact that I missed this baby because I was so ill myself. I do believe, and I will always say, I was a good mum and I loved her. And I mean, if anything, my issue was I loved her too much.
So there is different forms of postnatal depression, because the one I recognise is the one where they don't want to know the baby. You know, they don't take to the baby, they don't bond. But yours was completely different, where you were overprotective.
Yeah.
That's quite a common story for postnatal depression, actually, is anxiety, when you're so anxious about the baby and you're constantly worrying about the baby and you can't enjoy your baby.
But that does happen for the first few weeks anyway, doesn't it?
It's normal at first, but you gradually get better. It's when it's not getting better, it's when it's getting worse over a few months. But it's very difficult, actually, postnatal depression, because one of the things that doctors look for is sleep disturbance in depression. You're always you're always sleep deprived when you've got a baby and you're a new mum, and you're always tired. So that's another symptom you have to just put on one side and think, well, what else is there to show that this person's really got depression and isn't just a bit unhappy?
How did it make you feel?
I was just, at the beginning, I was just stupidly over-anxious. Going out of the house was just a nightmare, and it resulted in lots of physical symptoms, and I think it was always kind of put down to a virus, maybe an inner ear infection.
But in fact, they were classic signs of anxiety,
Yeah.
real deep-seated anxiety, which often goes with depression.
Yeah, yeah.
But her doctor didn't recognise that?
No. I mean, it's...
3 doctors didn't recognise that.
3 doctors didn't.
Yes, whereas
Get out
in fact...
that one, Rosemary.
Yeah. In fact, I mean, one thing doctors now look out for is mums who are coming in more frequently than maybe we think they should, with their babies with minor illnesses. But we think, hang on, is this a sign that she's over-anxious? Is it really here that not the baby that's the problem? Is it the mother? And what sort of treatment did you get?
I decided to go on SSRI medication.
Which are a type of antidepressants.
Yeah, my doctor told me quite rightly that they're not a magic cure, and his best analogy was to me that they're like a life jacket. They'll stop you from drowning, but you've got to get yourself out of the water.
And Chris, does it actually mean if you've had it once that you'll have it again, or...?
You are more at risk of having it again once you've had it once, but it's not like it's a risk that is 100%.
Right.
Okay, you've got about twice the risk of the average person.
Is there anything you can do to guard against it?
Yes, there is. One thing people don't often realise is that postnatal depression often can be traced back to the antenatal period, when people are already, you know, just coming up to the birth.
We now actually, when part of antenatal care is checking the mood of the mothers, because we recognise if the mother's mood is falling in pregnancy, she's much more at risk of having postnatal depression.
It's easier to deal with it before it happens than it is once it's there.
And Helen, is there any tips you would give to mums out there who are worried about it, who may be going through the symptoms of it, or...?
I think when you do talk to people and you realise how common it is and how many more people are going through it, and, you know, just go and get yourself some help, and that people aren't there to, you know, ruin your family.
There is a fear in some people that their child is going to be taken away if they're diagnosed as being mentally ill. You know, some big bad social worker is going to come along and take their child away.
And you see it, the women coping and think, why aren't I coping, which can make you feel a failure. Well, Helen, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.